There's all the stuff that you've got to do to meet the deadline, but there's all this other stuff that just creeps in every day. You're getting bombarded with email, you're getting bombarded with phone calls, you're getting text messages. And so having a system and learning how to deal with those things, I mean, for me, it doesn't matter what tool you use. You've got to have a way to get it out of your head.
What's architecture really about? ArchiSpeak is a show that dares to peek under the architectural kimono, exposing what architecture really is, what it is that architects really do, and show you why we are passionate about our chosen profession. I'm Evan Troxel. Join Neil Pan, Cormac Phelan, and me as we have a casual conversation about all things architecture, which includes all the stuff people don't talk about. Think you already know what architecture is really about? Tune in to find out. It's time for some ArchiSpeak.
Well, welcome to episode 16 of the ArchiSpeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
And first up, I believe we have some friends of the show to announce.
Yeah, so this week we had some $10 friends of the show that we'd like to say thanks to. We had Chad Conrad, and we had Smart Tools LLC. And then next we had a $50 donation from the team at NoVeg, and they say that they all love our show. And these guys are really cool. Thank you very much for your $50 donation to keep the show rolling. And last but not least, definitely not least, here we had a $100 donation from Mark Schumann. And Mark, thank you very much. It is very much appreciated. And now our kids can finally get their braces. So thanks, guys. And again, everybody out there who's listening, please take a second to consider sponsoring the show. Go to archispeakpodcast.com/donate. And we would love to say your name on our show as friends of the show. So thanks.
Absolutely. Well, since we've been procrastinating part of the day here to try and get this episode started, our topic today is going to be about procrastination and getting things done.
That's right.
You know, and speaking of procrastination, I've been procrastinating on doing a questionnaire interview with NoVeg. One of the friends of the show.
Yeah. One of the friends of the show.
And I promised them something that I haven't yet delivered to them. So let me just give them a little apology shout out.
Nice.
Well, actually, that's a good segue into how to. Well, Evan, you had some notes in here about this subject, and one of them I'm reading here is writing things down so that you remember them. So, Cormac, write down that you have to do this.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I use, a getting things done kind of an attitude, is I write things down so that I don't have to remember them. That's the reason I do it, because I can't handle this stuff bouncing around in my head all the time. You know, I can't be stressing about what I'm forgetting. And so if I don't have to worry about not forgetting it, I don't feel as stressed out.
So I sort of do the same thing where I'll write down a list of things that I need to get accomplished throughout the day, or maybe, hot topic items that I need to do throughout the week. But what happens if you forget where you put the list that you made? Which I do often.
Well, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who use paper lists, right? I mean, I live in OmniFocus, which is an app, for iPhone, it's for iPad, and it's for the computer. So I don't have an excuse. I can't lose my list unless I lose some very expensive technology.
Well, sometimes I'll use a little paper note.
Yeah, me too.
Just for that kind of like, oh, wait a minute, and I'll just stick it, on the desk or something, or on the monitor. But, so sometimes that works. But like you, Evan, I don't use anything. OmniFocus, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. It was just too much for me.
Yeah.
It's very deep. And, but one of the things I did was, or one of the things that made my life a lot easier is, I'm a Mac user. And so when Apple, on the phone, they have a Notes app, which is very basic, and a Reminders app, actually, in iOS 6 that came out last year. So they're very basic. They're not nearly as in-depth as OmniFocus. But I really kind of need I have simple needs when it comes to that. And what I like about those two particular apps is that they synchronize with my iPad or my iPhone, and then also with my Mac. And so what I like about it is whether I'm at my desk and using my Mac, boom, I can write a note. It's updated, and if I pick up and go, it has a nice feature where you can have it remind you, say when you leave the house or leave the office, like, hey, buy milk tonight. Remind me when I leave the office. And so I fall back like you, Evan, on technology to kind of help me manage some of that. But that's one way that I use to not forget items. Well, that I find very helpful.
Well, I may joke about it, and I do a lot of written lists, but I typically, even though I have, the affinity, as you guys might know about, of the good old Post-it, honestly, because I'm in a, PC dominated office, I use Outlook a lot. I use
email.
I use Outlook. Well, I use Outlook for creating tasks, reminders, all sorts of things.
Calendar.
And
calendars are getting things done.
Right.
Kind of a
and
app.
And I actually, I've integrated both my Google Calendar and also my iCalendar, all into Outlook, and it's been pretty successful to that Outlook for me, or Exchange, because I've got it running on my my iPhone, that I'm able to actually kind of keep up with a lot of the things that I need to really focus on and keep reminding myself that I need to get done. But there's a lot of times where I won't write down, like, say, you need to answer these RFIs. I'll have like my open log sitting on my desktop, and it'll be there as a constant reminder of, see this blank space, you need to provide an answer, kind of things like that.
I think what happens though is, like, we all have so many projects that we're working on, so there's not just work. We're not just talking about work. We're also talking about things around the house. We're talking about, things to pack for vacation. I've got things I got to do to my car. I've got things I have to do with my kids for homework. And so that's where this starts to become an issue, right? And then you start talking about priorities, but then you have priorities in almost every single one of those contexts. And so that's where this really we live in a very complicated, kind of busy lifestyle. And that's where procrastination starts to creep in, right? Because there's things that we're avoiding doing.
Oh, absolutely.
And in the environment that we work in, it's deadline driven. And if you don't have a deadline, what happens? Right? That stuff gets pushed to the side.
Yeah.
And so, there's all the stuff that you've got to do to meet the deadline, but there's all this other stuff that just creeps in every day. You're getting bombarded with email, you're getting bombarded with phone calls, you're getting text messages. And so having a system and learning how to deal with those things, for me, it doesn't matter what tool you use. You've got to have a way to get it out of your head so that the things that aren't priorities don't get forgotten, because you're going to get the priorities done, right? You've got people reminding you, they're at the top of your mind. They're the big things, but everything is not a priority, right? If someone has 26 priorities, they really don't have priorities, right? There's
Right.
maybe 3 things that are actual priorities in your life that you have to accomplish right now. But everything else is kind of just a to-do item. And when it happens, or, you're going to forget about it.
Yeah.
So why do we procrastinate, though? What creeps in that causes sometimes those priorities to go right to the top? Like, oh my gosh,
Put out
I've
a
got
fire,
no
right?
time. Yeah, I got to put out a fire now because instead of doing it yesterday, for whatever reason.
Well,
sometimes we just don't want to do something, right?
Well, it's
true.
there's
We agree to do things that just we never want to do anyway.
but
Well, Corrick, you mentioned the RFIs. Do you really want to do those today? No,
Well,
I really don't want to
of
do
course
those
not.
today.
But
You procrastinate.
And Evan started talking about it. It's like there's the task. There's kind of like the task-driven procrastination where, say if I am answering an RFI and I've got to forward it on to an engineer to review or to, give me a detail or something like that. And they kind of put it off to, it's like, well, I can't get to it today. And then they kind of put it off. And then it falls out of my mind, and I completely forget it. And I'm just like, oh crap, this was due, 2 days ago. And now, I'm scrambling to do that. And so then it's, when one task kind of overrides another one, then you've got this whole kind of like domino effect of other things that are now affected by, just that one, task that, was like that momentary procrastination where you missed it. And now you got to like go, and everything else now kind of falls by the wayside because you're, in that panic mode. But I mean, it just seems like almost everything that, and we discuss this a lot, even in the office, you've got, say you're working on a big project and you've got a year to do it in. And, you do it, but, you're kind of doing it, working a little slowly at it, from the beginning. But then
chipping away at it.
Yeah, you're chipping away, but you're not like, I'm going to get all this done now.
Right.
You do it in little bits and pieces. And then you realize that because you've been focused on so many other things, that you get to that like 95%. We always joke around. It's like, oh yeah, we're at, just made a 95% submission with 25% to go.
Yeah. Well, you get to that point where all of a sudden it's that oh shit moment, right? Where you've got a ton of work to do in a very short amount of time.
Right.
And it seems like a lot of people,
or
in the
you
office work in that mode.
Or you print out a set and you're like, wow, this is a huge set. There's tons of stuff here, but there's still a ton missing.
Yeah.
And you're just like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I have a question for you. I just thought came to me is how much of our procrastination is caused by we just maybe need some time off, or just a chance to maybe clear our head, get out and go for a bike ride or, something like that. And, or maybe you're doing that and you feel like you're procrastinating on your project, but, maybe you do need that time to kind of clear your head.
Well, I don't know if this is going to be the direct answer to that question, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But we've talked a little bit about this before, where how I know me, and I know that I need time for my mind just to chew on things in my subconscious while I'm doing the other things that need to get done. And I feel like I've had huge successes because I have done something at the last minute, because my brain was working on things even though I wasn't really aware of it. And so, this is the kind of thing to me where it's like you're in the shower or you're mindlessly driving to work in the car in the morning, and all of a sudden that thought pops into your head, and all of a sudden you've solved it, and you didn't even know you were thinking about it. Does that happen to you guys?
I'll give you a perfect example of, I've been telling you guys about this, this one project that we just recently took on that, is this killer deadline, that we don't really have a lot of guidance from our client with, but, we've got to produce a lot of, early schematic work. And, so I've been working towards, coming up with some schematic designs. And, I met with the bosses and stuff, and I said, all right, well, I'm going to have all of this stuff for you tomorrow. And I have to go to a job site. I have to do all of this other stuff. I was answering RFIs, late into the evening and doing all of these things. And so after I get back from the job site, I have to go and take my son to go get his first round of braces on. I have 45 minutes. Within 45 minutes, I sketch up a bunch of different plans, bunch of different elevations, cut some sections through this thing, all while sitting in the lobby of the dentist's office. And I get in there and I present it to them and all of this other stuff. Everybody's raving. Oh, this is fantastic. This is exactly what this school needs. You must have been up all night. And I'm like, I just did it like in 45 minutes before I walked into the office. Yeah. And I actually walked in the office with my son because, it was late in the afternoon and I didn't want to work all night long and wanted to present it to these guys. And I was just like, wow, literally the last 45 minutes before I was sitting in front of them, I got this, idea of a sketch that kind of actually streamlined all of the things that we were talking about and made it work better.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a sign of some getting things done kind of ninja skills is when you have a very limited tool set to work with and you figure out what you can get done with what you've got. So, I mean, and that's one of the reasons I love OmniFocus so much is because you assign a context to every task. And the other thing I want to talk about in a minute is the difference between a task and a project, because I think there's some people think of things as tasks, but they're really not. But anyway, back to the context thing is when you're driving in the car, I can do two things. I could listen to the radio or a podcast, or I could be on the phone talking, right? I can have my hands free and I can be figuring things out. I cannot do email. I can't do text messages. I can't even brainstorm, dump all the things out of my head, do the brain dump of all the things that I have to do this week. There's only a very limited amount of things I can do. And so one of the things that I'll do before I get in the car in OmniFocus is I'll click the button that says phone, and it'll show me all the phone calls I have to make. And it just shows me that. And so then I can decide which ones are my priorities right now that I have to get done in my 30-minute commute or whatever. And I think that, like you were limited. You have a pen and a sketchbook, and you're sitting in a waiting room. What can you get done? Right? And it was like the inspiration struck, and then you cranked it out. Right. And I think that that's a huge ninja skill, is to not be paralyzed of all the things you have to be doing right now. It's like, well, I've only got a phone. What can I do?
Right. Exactly.
To start checking stuff off the list. I think that's a big plus that a lot of people can have as a takeaway from this.
Well, Evan, that's similar to another note you have in our podcast notes here about finding the most productive part of your day and use it. I mean, you guys both just gave two good examples of, a part of your day that could be productive. Yeah.
Well, there's so many distractions throughout the day. And there's times when you feel like working, and there are times when you don't, and especially in the creative industry, you are not always just flowing with ideas, right? And I know for me personally, I am most productive from like 3:30 to 5:30. It would go longer, but I have to go pick up my kids at 5:30, and that's just when I know that, like, that's when I can really hunker down and get a lot done. Whereas when first thing in the morning, when I get into the office, I feel like a blob, I'm not even awake yet. Yeah. And so I know for me when the most productive part of my day is, and it is really important to like put on the blinders and not let anyone knock on your desk or hit you. You close the email program, you ignore the phone, whatever you need to do, and you just crank out what you need to get done.
Well, that's interesting because I'm actually just the opposite. I'm a morning person and can get more done. Like I drop my son off, my oldest son off early in the morning, and I get to work at 7:30, and no one really shows up until between 8:30 and 9, and the volume of work that I've got done between 7:30 and 9 is literally staggering. I mean, it's
substantial. Yeah,
it goes back to the old Army commercials. It's like, we get more done before 9 a.m. than you do all day, and it's just like, well, you know what? They're right.
Yeah. No, I know people who come in early to the office just for that reason, because it's quiet. The phone is not ringing.
Exactly. Not a single.
No one's walking by. Yeah, it's all those reasons.
Yeah, I'm also, Cormac, I'm more like you. When I was working in an office, I like to get in early.
See, everybody shows up to my office at 7:30, so that doesn't work for me. Because I got to drop my kids off too.
Not at our office. I mean, we pretty much we say, show up between 8:30, 9. If you show up before 9, you're not late. And so people basically kind of stagger in between 8:30 and 9. And so I actually literally have like an hour and a half that I can just, work free of any interruptions of anybody saying, hey, what do I need to do today, or things like that, and just kind of focus on getting some stuff done. And, I amaze myself at sometimes of like the actual like volume of work that I can get done. Now after 9 o'clock, I mean, my day's shot because everybody phones are ringing and you're doing this,
100
you're doing
emails
that,
piled up.
100 emails. And yeah, it's just.
Well, I think that distractions are a key part to procrastination, right? I mean, you feel like you're busy, but you're not actually getting anything done with all of these distractions going on. So, a big thing that I'll try to do is not have email running, or if email's running, why in the world would you want it to be checking for email every 5 seconds so that another notification pops up so that you can look to the side of the screen and see who's emailing you? I mean, there's lots of ways you could handle this, but one of the big ways is to just check your email 2 or 3 times a day at specific times. Don't even check your email until, like you're saying, Cormac, 9 o'clock, right? Or don't check it until right after lunch when you have a solid amount of time to actually respond to these emails, because you could get anxiety just with all the emails that are building up. Takes your focus off what you need to get done because you're just worrying about all these things you have to respond to.
Oh, and I mean that's a great example of a way to get things done. I mean, I had a deadline this past Thursday, and things were a little more complicated thanks to a flat tire. So I got in late, and so I had a very short period of time to do a whole lot of things, and I just took my phone, set it down on the other side of the desk, put it on silent, turned it over, and didn't look at it for 5 hours. Yeah. I completely ignored everything because I had to focus on exactly what I had to get done. At that point in time, there couldn't be any procrastination, right? I mean, or distractions in this case, right? I mean, I couldn't have that phone, going off and text messages or anything. It was like, nope, focus, get things done. And that's, one of the ways that I did it. And in my case, this wasn't a procrastination, caused sort of deadline. It was, a lot of work to do in 2 or 3 days, and, just had to get it done. So, but Cormac, going back to something you said earlier, sometimes I get in the evening, I'm just shot. It's 9 o'clock, the kids are in bed, and there's some evenings I can get back up and, come downstairs and get some more work done. But then there's other days I'm shot. I just go to bed, but I'll wake up at 5 a.m. And again, being more of a morning person, I can crank from 5 to 7 before I have to get my kids up, or 6 to 7 in the morning, and, get done what I could have done from 9 to 10 or 10 to 11 at night. I just do it in the morning instead. So that's just knowing when your best time is.
Yeah. And this also kind of goes back to what you were asking initially, which was, do you really just need some time off? And I think that the thing you're talking about, the daily build up, when you go home and you're fried, I think when you're feeling like that all the time, that's when you need to go off into the wilderness and just kind of recharge, Yeah. And I had that experience last week. I got to take off for a week. I went to Burning Man and I just hung out and got to see a bunch of cool stuff, and I didn't have to worry about anything. There was no cell service, right? There's no way that somebody's going to be calling me or there's no notifications popping up. The phone isn't even on you for the whole week. And I came away from that with some amazing ideas of things that I want to do, and I felt like there would be no other way for me to actually pull that off than other to just fully disconnect.
And so I've went on vacation probably, I guess, what was it, the week before you did?
Yeah.
And I had just the opposite experience.
Well, you took a laptop, you fool.
Well, yeah. Well,
that's not a vacation, by the way.
I'm sitting there and I'm on the phone with the contractor who we're revising curtain wall shop drawings because the subcontractor's refusing to basically release anything until he has field measurements, but is refusing to do field measurements. So here we are basically doing things and kind of orchestrating all of this stuff, and we're doing everything. And, hours later, my wife kind of peeks her head in and she's like, "Are we going to do anything?" And I'm just like, all right. I was like, I got to hang up and go and actually have a vacation. Yeah. So I'll talk with you later. And
and then I think you texted us and you were like, how do you even disconnect, and basically my response was go out of range, right?
Yeah. Well,
Turn it. There is an off button on these things.
There is, but I have not figured out how to use that.
You haven't found it yet.
Going back to the email thing, I find, not only with the whole vacation thing, but I find that emails are this constant blaring reminder of my constant procrastination. Because it's, you get all these emails. It's like, Cormac, you said that you were going to have this, by today. And it's just like, damn it, you're right, I did. And it's just, and it's not that I really intentionally forgot something. It's just like everything else keeps popping up and getting in the way. And you're just like, it's not really that, it wasn't really necessarily that important. The building wasn't going to fall over or anything if I didn't do it.
Well, yeah. That's a really important point about getting things done too is, and again, this goes back to priorities, but what's the worst that could happen if you don't get to it? Because, I think what a lot of us have a hard time doing is saying no to things, right? So there's a lot of stuff sitting on our lists that we didn't want to do, might even not have any intention of doing, but it's there nagging you, right?
Right.
And so what do you do with those things? And so, like you said, what's the worst that could happen? The building's not going to fall down. It could slow down a little bit, but no one's going to die. No one's going to get fired for this. And so what do you do with those things? It's like you come back from a vacation, you've got 200 emails in there. How many of those emails are really important? What if you just deleted them all?
Well,
the things that are really important, they'll email you again or they'll call you. But if you have to declare email bankruptcy, sometimes that's the only way out.
I love that.
That's a good one. I love that too.
I've honestly never heard that, but I think that's great because
sometimes it's the only way out.
Yeah, I think
my wife's got like 7,000 emails in her inbox in Yahoo. What are you ever going to go through those? No, never. Right? So do you really need the emails from 4 years ago in your inbox? I don't think so.
Yeah, and actually it's funny you say that because I started running we've got small hard drives on our computers and stuff anyway, but I started running out of memory and
out of space
and space on there. And I went into, now I've got every single, literally from the day I was hired, the first day I started at there, I have every single email that was sent to me.
How many times have you gone back through those?
Rarely ever, unless, here's my rationale.
Is it some kind of insurance for you?
It is. I've had a project before that they said, hey, this never got finished, or this was, omitted from the project or something, and we've already punched it out, and they're looking for final payment, and this isn't done, and and I've actually
there are clearly things that you need to hang on to,
and that's the thing. It's just like so rather than distinguishing between them, I just keep them all.
Yeah, but that delete key, man, that delete key is your friend.
I'm an electronic hoarder.
You need to be ruthless with that delete key.
In fact, there should be a new show on TLC for electronic hoarders.
Hoarders. Yeah.
But rather than hoarders, the electronic hoarders. It's like, what crap is really on your computer and what can you live without? And I'll probably I'll be crying in the corner, I don't know why I have an email from, from Evan saying, welcome to the Archispeak.
Or that email that says, thanks, for something you did. And you kept that one.
Exactly. But they said thank you to me.
Right. Yeah, there's value.
Probably the only time they did, but anyway. But yeah, so I could probably go back and shuffle through all that stuff.
But then you got to go back through it. I mean, that just takes time away from the stuff that needs to be done.
See, and so now I'm procrastinating even more because I'm going through my old. So that's why I'm trying to avoid it, because I don't want to procrastinate on the current issues.
Hoarder's dilemma. Yeah.
I will find an excuse for everything you try to throw at me. So bring
that's
it.
a good procrastination technique, right?
Exactly.
I mean, excuses why you didn't do something.
Exactly. You're just like, well, why didn't you do that? Well, I have, and everybody, and it's interesting to really hear some of like the excuses that people can come up with for why something hadn't been accomplished. It's just like, okay, your only task today was to do this. Why didn't you, why couldn't you get it done? Well, I was trying to clean out my email and because I have things from 5 years ago, it just kind of snowballed into trying to figure out why I still have all this stuff. And at the end, and then I realized it was 5:00 and I had to go walk my dog.
Yeah.
The dog ate your email, right?
Well, then, but
Have
see,
we
then,
tried that one
but see,
yet?
then I wouldn't have an excuse.
No.
Because the dog ate the email, or my son reformatted my computer with the press of a button,
Which actually did happen.
Which actually, you know what?
There.
That's what put an end to me working on vacation, not by choice, but by my son accidentally reformatting the computer.
That's a pro tip for you.
So exactly.
How to get out of work. Have your son
kid,
wipe
here's a
out
$5.
your email.
Here's a
Yeah.
$5 bill.
I bet
You could go take care of my system for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I bet my wife actually did that. She's, you know what? That button, that's
smart.
and it's weird too. I don't know how much experience you guys have with Windows 8, but so I took the Windows machine with me because it's the easiest way for me to get to the VPN and all of these different programs that I have at the office, and then the office loaded on, like Revit and everything onto my laptop, so I can, clearly never get away from work.
Work on vacation.
But so he was trying to figure out how to, do this. He had an internet connection problem. And so it was troubleshooting, and it says, would you like to, throughout all of the different troubleshooting things, and it basically said, would you like to refresh your computer? So it took,
Heck yeah.
So it took him to this thing that says, to refresh the computer. And it clearly
Sounds refreshing. Yeah.
Danger.
And 12-year-old kid, it's just like, yeah, sure, let's refresh
They hit the
it.
yes button, without even reading
So,
it. Yeah.
well, but he did read it, and it said that it wouldn't do anything to your files, which is a load of crap. It deleted every program that I had ever installed on the computer and every file with it.
You sound sad. I mean, it sounds like this kid liberated you.
He did. I
He did you a favor.
What was the funny thing is I didn't even get upset. I was just like, let's go to Disney.
And that is the best thing you could do right there. I mean,
it's just
really, there is nothing you could do about that.
You're looking at it, and he's petrified. He is
Oh, poor
scared,
kid.
and I'm just like,
You're like, kid, I'm taking you to Disneyland.
it's just like, don't worry, man. I was like, so literally we were like, whatever, let's go to the beach.
Yeah.
What
got to the point-
What can you do? I mean, I'm not going to be
You
able to
can't.
magically reconnect with all of the things that I just lost.
No.
Actually, the worst thing about the whole thing is that because he loves doing like fan fiction writing and stuff, he lost all of those files.
Oh, no.
Got to do them again the second time. It'll be so much better the second time.
Yeah.
Back up.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We're not
was
talking
gonna
about
say,
that today, but back up.
gotten to the point where everything on my computers is so backed up that if my kids screwed something up, I wouldn't worry about it at all. And I feel so much peace because of that.
Well, apparently, because it's a newer, laptop, apparently I didn't set the restore stops or, the restore points.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't get, it literally had, it had 2 points, where it was or back to the factory settings. And there was no
Back
restore.
to the factory it went.
Yeah, and back to the factory it went. It was, which led to more procrastination because now all of that work that I was promising myself that I would do while on vacation went undone.
Yeah. Hey, good. I'm glad for you. I'm glad that happened. That's awesome.
Yeah. Windows 8 did you a favor.
That's right.
Exactly. You know what? How many times can you actually say that Windows did something good for you?
There you go.
Crickets.
In this case, crickets. Yeah.
It's the program that keeps on giving. Whether it's, a locked up frozen computer, the blue screen of death, or restores itself and you can't do anything.
I love that. I love those automatic restarts.
Yes.
Hey, so anyway, let's jump back to procrastination here. So I wanted to talk about the difference between tasks and projects, because I think a lot of people think about what they would consider it to be a thing to do, a task, but really it's probably 10 or 20 steps to actually get to that point. And I think that's where a lot of people get petrified in this system, right, of getting things done. Because we're thinking, all I need to do is build the model, or all I need to do is mow the lawn, as an example. But really, there's several steps involved in doing that, right? I mean, do you guys make the distinction between tasks and projects? Because mow the lawn is a project, it's not a task. You've got to open the garage. Is there gas in the lawnmower? You might have to go get gas. You got to pull the lawnmower out. I mean, there's all these things that are involved.
I just look at everything as part of the process of the project.
Yeah, because really, that's why you're not doing it, right? It's because there are so many things involved in actually doing it, and you don't have time to actually get that done. And because you kind of haven't laid it all out, you haven't put some thought into what it's going to take to get those 10 things done, which you really were thinking were just one thing. You're kind of stuck, right? Because you know that you can't chip away at it because you haven't defined those things so that you can ultimately have the success of checking the whole project off the list. You guys make that distinction?
Oh, absolutely. But oftentimes it depends on maybe the scope and scale of what it might be. Like in your example, mowing the lawn, to me, is a task. I know it's a project because there's lots of steps. In fact, thanks for reminding me I got to go get gas for my lawnmower. But
get to work, yeah.
But I think, but your example is perfect though, because if you've got a large project that has a lot of tasks to it, it's very easy to get lost or to procrastinate because like, wow, this is such I have so many things to do. I can't do this one thing. But you're right, Evan, in pointing out, okay, identify that as a project and begin to label some of the things that are the tasks to complete that project. And you'll find that if you do that, then you kind of start working it out in your head and putting it down on paper or electronically, what needs to be done. And then you can actually start like, okay, well, I can't get the lawns mowed today, but I can go get the gas.
Right.
Or
so that,
I need to have
facilitate the actual
mower
thing happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you can actually start to do that and feel some sense of accomplishment. And actually, once you get that ball rolling, you often find that
you get on a roll.
Yeah, and you can keep going.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another reason I love technologies, the implementation of something like OmniFocus here is because if I'm out running errands, like I have things set up to, I know I need to get this thing at Home Depot, right? And I know I need to get this thing at the grocery store. And one nice thing that I can do is I can say, it'll actually remind me, hey, you're near a grocery store, or hey, you're near Home Depot. Why don't you pick up these bolts and this baling wire and this thing that you need while you're here, instead of, getting home, starting to do the project. Oh crap, I forgot I need to pick up these bolts. And so what does that do? There's no Home Depot run that's less than 2 hours, right? Because once you get in there, you've got to deal with the lines and you've got to try to find help and you've got to find the thing and check out, and the self-checkout thing's not working and you're fighting traffic. And before you know it, you get back home, it's 2 hours later and you can't do what you set out to do. And that's the kind of thing where technology actually could really help out, right? I was out by Home Depot yesterday and it reminded me to pick up this stuff so that I can do the project I can this weekend. I love that.
Yeah, it's an awesome thing.
It helps. It helps a lot.
What I actually interpreted from both of that is that you feel a sense, both Neil and Evan, you're saying that you feel a sense of accomplishment for punting your project a little bit further down the road by just getting one little cog of that.
Whatever you project. Can. Well, it's like you sitting in the waiting room for braces, right?
Right.
I mean, you got your project a little bit farther forward. You worked at a time you didn't think you were going to get anything done, right?
Right.
But you did move it forward, and it ended up being extremely successful for you.
Well, really,
So, I mean-
I was more just laughing at the fact that,
I know you were.
Neil,
but then I took it and I turned it.
Neil again didn't mow his yard, so he's that neighbor who's got the
He's
tall
that guy.
grass, and but at least he's got gas.
He's got gas.
I
He's
got
ready
gas.
to mow. He's ready to mow.
I mowed last weekend, guys. It's all good.
It's fine. It'll all be okay. What's the worst that could happen if the lawn doesn't get mowed? Right?
Yeah. Well, your neighbors they give you the stink eye or something.
Then you go outside, park your car in the front yard, you take the wheels off and just let the grass grow up, and
No, you forgot the part where you have to stop at Home Depot to buy blocks to put the car up on.
Jeez.
Damn it. Another 2 hours lost.
there
You gotta go buy cinder blocks.
So what do you guys think about this? If you're working at work and you don't have the leisure of working until whenever you want to leave. Say you've got to leave at 5 or 5:30 to go pick up something on the way home or kids or whatever. Flowers, whatever you need to get. Do you guys ever intentionally, what I call park on a downslope? Do you ever work to a stopping point where you're not quite done so that when you come in the next day, you know exactly where you were and what needs to get done so that you can just pick up running and you know exactly where you're going?
All the
I
time.
think that's another kind of a ninja trick there.
Yeah, I do that all the time. In fact, and I hate to keep going back to the RFIs, I do a lot of them, but, it just, the other day, great example.
If you did your drawings right the first time, Cormac, you wouldn't have to deal with these.
I got it.
Do I sound like a contractor?
No, you sound actually like me. It's just like, how could I not have X-ray vision and see through that building and know that, this 105-year-old building didn't have footings the entire distance of the wall. It had it at the corner. It had it at the other corner. Who knew it didn't have it in the middle?
All right, I'm sorry I took you off topic.
No, I was just, but I mean, yeah, exactly. But more procrastination. It's just, I was answering an RFI and I knew I had to be home because I had to take my son to the soccer. And so I got as much of the RFI answered as possible and knew the only thing that I had to do was just mark up a sketch and attach it, PDF attach it to the thing and then email it off. So left it, saved everything and left it open on my desktop so that when I came in, first thing I did, once I, clicked on my mouse and the computer reawoke, what was the first thing staring me at the face? Hey, finish me.
Yep.
And, clicked, did a couple more things, probably like 10, 15 more minutes worth of work, and it was out. But I had to leave, there was just nothing I could do. So, I do that all the time.
I think it's important because if you work to exhaustion, which, we're kind of used to doing, then you come in the next day and you remember being exhausted.
Yeah.
And you're not ready to go. You kind of feel, you could even feel kind of lost, or stuck. What do I do next? Kind of a thing. Whereas if you stop on the downslope, you kind of know what to do right when you get in, like you said, and you start doing it and you just start to get into that flow right away.
Right.
I think that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
do you guys ever go ahead, Cormac?
Oh, no. Go ahead, man.
Well, I was going to say, do you ever then do the opposite of that where maybe you get to a point, I've been designing plans and elevations recently for several projects. And so as I finish one, and it's like, okay, well, I've gotten these, 3 different elevations done for this house, and it's, 4:30 or something. And it's like, you know what? I'm done.
Yes.
I'm not going to get, to get in my 8 hours or whatever it might be to hit that 5 o'clock mark when it's the acceptable time to leave
just rarely
the
happens.
office.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not happening today, so I can either, kind of go get some water, go talk to somebody. Oh, okay, now it's 5 o'clock, I'll leave. But essentially you have checked out of the game
Right.
at, say, in this example, 4:30 because you've done your work.
Well,
So
I think
at that point, why
makes
not just go
perfect
home?
sense. It makes
right?
perfect sense. And the whole mentality, this is something I would love to see changed, is ass and seat mentality, which is, you sit there for 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day, whatever it is, and you work. Like, everybody knows that rarely happens, right? And so really, man, dream job for me would be having a studio that rewards people based on results and not based on hours they work.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Back to the parking downhill notion there. Have you also done it where, you work basically to that point where, you got to leave, or, it's just you can't do anymore.
Right.
And so you leave, and it actually was probably more fortuitous that you did stop, because then when you come back and re-examine what you just did, you're like, oh, you know what? Why would I send this answer off? You know what? It's actually this, or here's.
You can make it better,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost like, man, I was really lucky that I didn't hit send on this, because I had either something that was easier, cheaper, or free, of an idea, of a, response to an RFI or something, or, you're working on a design and you're trying to get something done, and, it's all right. I'm tired. I'm done. I got to rush out. I've got to do this. And then you come back and you look at it and you're like, okay, well, that was a good seed, but hey, now you're critiquing what you did, and you come up with something better.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this. How many times have you procrastinated long enough on something where the client or, whatever it might be? And the case I'm thinking of is like maybe the client came back and decided to change their mind on it. And it's like, oh, well, I'm glad I just put that off for 3 days, because it all changed again. And if I had spent the last day making that change, I'd be undoing it or redoing it again anyway. So it's like, well, it didn't matter. Actually, I'm glad I procrastinated on that one.
That's true.
I've had that happen a few times.
That's true. Maybe one more thing to talk about with procrastination. I kind of think the root to most procrastination is fear. What do you guys think? I mean, to me, it's like, it might be a task that would take you out of your comfort zone. Maybe you need to make a phone call to somebody that you don't want to really make that phone call, and so you're putting it off. But I think fear of the unknown, of what could happen, tends to paralyze people a lot of the time. And I've found that if I have that fear, I've found that when I actually do those things, I get so much out of it. Like, those are the things that if I feel that fear, I know I need to do this. Because usually it's taking you out of your comfort zone, and you're going to learn something huge from it.
I think that's so true. Fear is huge. Making the phone call or trying to do something new. I mean, part of it, even doing this podcast, was kind of probably, I don't know about you guys, but scary for me. And it's like, well, we're gonna just put it out there. We're gonna try it. Yeah. And actually, I don't know. We might have talked a little bit about this in the first episode, but we recorded several times before we actually published our first podcast, and then eventually we just said, well, fine, we're just going to make this our first one, bad or good or indifferent. And so there was some fear even with us even doing this podcast, and that happens, I think, a lot every day.
I think, one thing that feeds into that is something isn't perfect, right? So you don't want to put it out there until it's perfect. And so literally your list gets longer and longer, because you can make things better and better before you put it out there. But really, I mean, one of my favorite sayings is, if you're not embarrassed by your first release of whatever it is, I mean, you put it out too late. You've got to, when you start something, you've got to get it out there and just put it on the line, and I feel like that's when you learn the most.
Well, that's good advice. I mean, that's great advice for anybody. If you're a student and you've got a project and you're worried about it, hey, it's not great. Don't worry about it. Just get it out there, get feedback, and make it better the next time.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll have a good idea or a bad idea, but maybe just a good idea. Rarely a great idea. And it's other people's input that make it a great idea.
Yeah. And
that's a key to being in an office.
Well, right? I mean, because a lot of people, they'll try to just do. They think that, lightning strikes once. This is a great idea. I'm going to go with it and kind of push it, but they don't like flush it out and let other people look at it because, kind of the root of architecture is to be experienced by other people. So let other people look at it, kind of, critique it and see where, it might actually be the great idea, or it might need to be tweaked and, kind of experienced by other people. And a lot of people, and this may go back to the conversation we had about the ego, but, people a lot of times, just either out of fear, as you were saying, Evan, or, out of ego, they just want to just kind of hold everything in and just, let me just do this one thing and not really progress it. So, I think you're right. Get it out there, get it seen, get it, and you may not feel comfortable with it. And that actually is probably a good thing because, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to talk about critique. I think that's going to be a great episode. Maybe we should leave it on a cliffhanger there. What do you think?
Okay. Well, then on that note, if you have any questions or comments, please visit our website at archispeakpodcast.com. You can also reach us on our individual Twitter accounts, which are listed on the site. You can follow as well as Archispeak on Twitter and also on our Facebook page as well. And then nobody's actually done it yet. Are we scaring everybody with the threat of putting you on the show? But nobody's called and left us a message at our voice number, which is 415-484-8496. Don't worry. We probably won't unless it's something really good, but
we'd love to hear from people.
We're feeling a little lonely out here.
Who could be the first person to call the Archispeak podcast? That's a challenge.
Get your name. Yeah, there. Yeah, let's hear back from the listeners.
Who's
absolutely. And also too,
I'm just Neil's wife with his grocery list.
That are telling me to get out of the office and engage with the family because I've been in here recording this podcast.
Exactly.
But don't forget also to leave a review on iTunes if you can. And Evan, we should may have a brief mention about the Monterey Design Conference.
Yeah. Monterey Design Conference is coming up at the end of September. I think it's the 27th through the 29th. And we will be there. We're going to be doing some interviews and just chatting with people, hanging out, having a good time. So that's in Monterey, California. Look up the MDC online, and it's a really cool architecture conference. I went a couple of years ago, and I had a great time. It was really refreshing and renewing, and there's some really great speakers there. I know they've got a really good lineup this year. So if you're going, we'd love to meet you while you're there. And the other thing that we're thinking about doing is obviously recording some interviews and stuff, but we would love if our people out there on Twitter and Facebook, if they have things that you can't make it to the conference, but you'd like to ask, send us those things and we will ask them to the people who are there. That would be really cool to get some of the Archispeak audience involved before we go. And then we're going to turn whatever we can into a podcast after that. So that'll be fun. We'll definitely be looking out for people there. So give us a shout out if you show up and we're all there together. And then other than that, you can become a friend of the show. Don't forget that at archispeakpodcast.com/donate.
Get your name read on the show.
That's right. Get your name read on the show. We'll make you famous. All right. So I think that's it for this week.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Only outline my body in Tiffany blue. When I died, I drove magic